The hard right of the Liberal Party remains committed to strengthening the coalition's resolve to fight over 70% of Australians who support marriage equality. But we won't. So what unashamed contempt they have for us and what the vast majority of people want. And let's not forget Fred Nile, who recently organised a march against marriage equality, attended by neo-Nazis associated with Reclaim Australia and the UPF. Community Action Against Homophobia protested that, and 3 of our activists were fined $500 each for offensive language. But the real offensive language, which remains completely illegal, is the homophobic attacks on the Safer Schools Coalition, the attacks on Gay Baby, and what's currently written in the Marriage Act.
Look, this is Patrick and my name's Kat. We're from Community Action Against Homophobia. We've organised the demonstration today, and like Patrick was saying, it's pretty important that we are out here in opposition at the moment to what the government is trying to do, which is essentially to push off what is probably, in the grand scheme of things, an inevitable victory for equal rights. You know, since we've won in Ireland and the USA, it's pretty clear that this is going to become the norm across the entire Western world, even if we are the last to have it. And so it's good to see people out here today prepared to march with us against any further delays.
I have to be here because I believe in marriage equality, and I fully believe in your rights to get married. That doesn't mean to say all people of the same sex will get married, but you should have the rights. And we should realise in this country, any single human being or any group who is oppressed is an indictment on the whole country. A sad indictment on this whole country.
Hi everyone. So there's been a lot of criticism of the marriage equality movement over the past couple of years, that it's a distraction from all pressing issues that face queer people, and that the fight for marriage equality is a distraction from things like youth suicide or alcoholism rates. But I can look out at the people here today and say that that's bullshit. I see a whole bunch of people, both straight and queer, who are fighting for something, and I think that's great. I want to look at queer people when we're fighting and when we're strongest, rather than look at us when we're at our weakest. A strong activist culture and a stronger community is the best way to fight these more difficult changes, and it's the best way to change minds. But how do we build this kind of community? Queer activism used to look a lot different to how it looks today. In the 1900s, early homophile groups accepted the homophobic idea that gay people were sick and wrong, and searched for things like the gay gene to prove that homosexuality wasn't their fault. Obviously, this is not the tradition of activism that we want to look towards. It was only with an emergence of radical left-wing activists that the terrain started to change. We can look back to the Stonewall riots, which was an uprising of the most poor and the most oppressed sections of our community. The Malcolm Turnbulls and Julie Bishops of our world were not at Stonewall. It was the Marsha P. Johnsons, the Stormé de Olivares, the Sylvia Rivieras who were there.
People have raised serious concerns about a plebiscite to decide about marriage equality. It's a bizarre situation because I come from a party and from a community that is committed to the idea of engaging the community, that is committed to the idea of grassroots democracy, and to actually recognising that the community and the people should have a say over the decisions that impact on them. But at the same time, as a woman who looks like I do, as someone who has campaigned for many years on minority rights, on refugee rights, I think that when it comes to issues of equality, when it comes to issues of being treated with respect and dignity under the law, that these are actually the responsibilities of our parliamentarians to make these laws, to ensure that our laws do not discriminate against people. That said, if we have to have a plebiscite to deal with this, to convince our spineless leaders that actually the community supports equality, then I know that all of you, in your numbers today, the thousands that have marched with us before, and the hundreds of thousands across this country that support marriage equality, that if that is how we have to do it, we will achieve it and we will win.
In about 12 or 18 months, Julie Bishop will head to a polling booth and she'll the one of millions who casts a vote in a plebiscite on our rights. And this national poll will cost $150 million on our civil rights. And the plebiscite, which has been called unnecessary, expensive, and potentially damaging to LGBTI people and their family by a Senate committee, you know, this is still what Malcolm Turnbull's going ahead with. So actually, Julie Bishop's support for marriage equality means nothing at all, really. And it gets better, right? Because after we have this plebiscite, and undoubtedly it shows that there is majority support for marriage equality because we already know that exists, once that happens, a piece of legislation will go back to our parliament, which we already have a piece of legislation in our parliament right now. So an identical piece of legislation will head back to parliament, and then it'll be voted on by MPs and senators, and then and only then is when Julie Bishop's vote will count for anything. It boggles the mind, and it's just not good enough. It is utter garbage. So what can you do about it? Here's 5 things. The first thing you can do about it is you can email your MP. Jump onto the Australian Parliament House website and send them an email. The second thing you can do about it is to keep showing up. Things like this, again and again. Show our politicians that we're not going away and we're not backing down. The third thing you can do about it is tell Mr. Turnbull exactly how you feel. Find him on Twitter, jump onto his Facebook page and give him a piece of your mind. The fourth thing you can do about it is get in touch with the media, write to the editor, call the talkback radio stations and tell them that a plebiscite is not good enough and we are not going to wait anymore. And then the fifth thing you can do about it is call a friend of yours who lives in a national or liberal held electorate and get them to follow steps 1 through to 4. And hopefully this is how we'll win this thing. It's so great to see you all here again and again fighting. Thank you so much for being here.
If we got married tomorrow, the world will still turn. I promise you. I just think the world will be a better place. When we had our first commitment ceremony, it was in front of family and friends. Now, when we do get the chance to marry, it's not going to be like that. Because one day my sister died. And 4 months later, another sister died. And 4 years later, my brother died. And then my father died. And then last year, on our 27th anniversary, my mother died. This has been taken from us. I love that today's topic is no more delays. There's been enough. That's been stolen from Ron and I. It's not right, it's not fair. No amount of legislation will give me the opportunity to be married with my family. We must keep up the pressure.
So Anthony has told you a little of our story. For 11 years now, we've been all telling our stories. We have discussed the issue so many times now that there is nothing really new to add. Poll after poll, Australia has already voted. John Howard didn't need a plebiscite to change the Marriage Act in 2004, and we don't need one now. In the 6-hour joint party room meeting of the Liberal National Parties in August, it was announced that a free vote would take place in the next term of Parliament. Now that Turnbull has taken the reins, there will be no free vote. Not now, and not even after the next election. Despite Turnbull himself ridiculing the idea of a public plebiscite when Abbott proposed one and publicly supporting marriage equality, the Liberal government remains committed to spending $150 million on a public vote, and we have to see this as nothing more than a stalling tactic. Turnbull has sold us out once again to the noisy right-wing factions in order to remain secure in the top job. Make no mistake, a plebiscite will be divisive and potentially dangerous. not only because it will allow hate groups a greater platform on which to spread their fallacies that will further annihilate LGBTI people and their families, but it also sets a dangerous precedent that laws should be voted on rather than built on evidence by our representatives in Parliament.
We've said in our campaign for many years now that we have the vast majority of Australians on our side, and we know this because the other side has not produced a single poll, not one, to say that Australians oppose marriage equality. And I can tell you that they would have tried. I'm sure that they have the money to put a million polls up with different wordings of questions. Well, none of them have come back that have actually been worth publishing from their point of view. So we've known for a long time that we could win a plebiscite if we were to have one. But people have made the valid point today that this plebiscite proposal has got nothing to do with our rights and everything to do with delaying what should be ours. And it should have been ours for many years, many years.
Guys, these rallies are so incredible, and I was just speaking to Matt Atkinson at Same, who always takes fabulous photos of all of you. It's always so amazing to see the huge percentage of young people at these rallies. It's really beautiful, and it's really important, and it makes you realise how much of a hot topic this is, not even for the LGBT community, but for the young ones, the young LGBT community, which is really important. It's really interesting, this whole topic. A lot of people think marriage is for old people, but it's not, and it's definitely about that Macklemore lyric, I think, which is, it's just a piece of paper, but it's a great place to start. And I think it's really important. I remember growing up, one of my first jobs was as a legal clerk in Paddington at a law firm before I decided to sell barbecues full-time. And at this law firm, the principal and his partner were in a long-term relationship together as husbands, and it was the first time for me that I really experienced that as a questioning 21-year-old about where I wanted my life to go and who I was as a person. And I think I just want to say about the plebiscite, how terrible that will be for young people with families debating that in the dining room, with the community debating that in broader society. I think it's really gross. But if we have to do it, we're going to win it for sure. It'll be an amazing moment at the end of it. But today, what we're doing by walking up and having a consistent presence and saying that we're not going away is so important. So I thank you all so much for coming today, and for CAR for organising it as well.
Gay, straight, black, white.
Marriage is a civil right.
Gay, straight, black or white.
Marriage is a civil right.
Gay, straight, black or white.
Marriage is a civil right.
Gay, straight, black or white.
Marriage is a civil right.
In touch with our group, and who have organised these demonstrations for years and will continue to bring people out on the streets. So our name is Community Action Against Homophobia.
Oh, okay.